Welcome back to the Sportsball Podcast, your source for sports. I am your host, Andy, with my co-hosts Nate and Zach this week. And we are fully back in the full swing of things with football ramping up finally. NFL starting this week. Volleyball is just now getting going again. MLB is drawing near to the playoffs. So we're finally getting back to that sweet, savory fall season where all of our wonderful sports are coming back. And I know we had just talked off before we got back, or before we started recording today, that basketball starts next month for both pro and college. So that is an insane wild thought, considering the fact that the NBA finals were 2 months ago and some set of those players also played in the Olympics last month. So they really haven't had any time off. But regardless, it's great to have a full week of college football back on our plates again this past weekend. But before we dive into all of the NFL preview that we're going to do, college football slate from last weekend, and definitely diving into Nebraska's season opener with Dylan Raiola as our sweet savior quarterback that we have longed for as a program ever since probably, I don't know, Eric Crouch. But besides that, we'll jump into baseball real quick. And the only note that I had for this was the White Sox are trending to be the best, worst team of all time. If you don't know anything about them, one, good for you because you're not a fan of them. And proud of you for not watching their horrendous season. Currently, they are 31 and 109 and losing to the Orioles right now 0-9.
31 and 109, and notably eliminated from the playoffs.
Yes, as if any of us were surprised when that graphic was tweeted out weeks ago.
I was going to say, whenever that
you could have told me that in June.
Everybody was like not surprised. Also, noted, I am not in a hotel, so hopefully sound quality is better this week. That's all.
On my end, you sound great. But
you were somewhere else?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Somewhere with a green screen that I didn't even use.
Yeah. He could have used.
Absolutely failed on my part, but
yeah.
That's why we need a producer.
If you have a rooting baseball interest, that's probably going to make the playoffs. Good for you.
If you have a rooting interest in baseball, you probably don't cheer for the White Sox this year.
Yes. And if you do, I am so sorry for you. You deserve maybe a little bit better. I'm not
you
really
deserve
sure. You
peace,
chose the
love,
White
and
Sox, so a little bit is that on you for choosing the lesser Chicago team to cheer for, if you're going to choose any Chicago team to cheer for. But outside of that, I mean, the playoff race that we had talked about last week is generally about the same. AL East is pretty much between the Yankees and the Orioles at this point of who's going to take that division, and then whoever doesn't is going to get the wild card spot. My Red Sox have seemingly dumped everything out on the table. They are still technically trying, but they're not doing it well. So I think it is just best for them to just kind of go to bed and just wrap this season up there. The Twins are making some ground on the Guardians. It's a matter of time if the Guardians slip up or if the Twins slip up first. And I'm probably going to go, sorry, Nate, the latter of that option.
I would too.
Guardians have been pretty good.
Kind of our best bet.
Yes. And it's going to be a very tight race in that division just because the Royals now don't really have the Red Sox to kind of worry about for that wild card spot anymore. And then the Mariners fired their head coach, I think, a couple weeks ago. So they're kind of out of the playoff race at this point. Not entirely, but just a little bit. But yeah, for that last wild card spot, it's probably going to be between the Twins and the Royals of who, if either one of them wants to catch the Guardians and take the division. But
cool if it was Minnesota, but
yeah, it's again trying to rely on the Guardians this year to slip up. It's not been the best option to do with that.
Yeah.
Outside of that, none of the National League races are that competitive or close.
I was going to say, as a Cardinals fan, it's not looking good for them in the Central. So, I mean, I guess it is baseball. I guess anything can really happen. There's still enough time that anything could happen, but 12 games behind. Well, that's I think that's the leader. But regardless, it's just they're far enough behind. It's probably not going to happen. So,
I've been surprised with how not great the Dodgers have been. Like they have the best record, but it's only by like 2 games.
Yeah, I was gonna say
It's
they're
like-
they're only above the Phillies,
know.
who like a month ago I would have said is like the favorite to win the National. So, and I still maintain that. I think the Phillies probably have the best chance of winning it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, since we're all so good at takes, by the way, since we're here, we should.
Oh, no.
Which we'll get more into our takes later too. But since we're so good at those, we should definitely try to determine who's going to be the World Series teams.
I'm gonna throw in. Are we predicting the World Series or just who's going to be in the playoffs?
Playoffs would take us forever. Let's just do the World Series.
I'm gonna say. I'm not picking the Yankees. I can never pick the Yankees as much as they probably have a really good chance to.
I had my mouse, like I'm the one that controls this for anybody that was curious. I had my mouse over the kick button as soon as you started even contemplating coming out of your mouth. It's like if you would have said Yankees, I'd be like, Andy is kicked off.
I can't do that as a Red Sox fan.
You got real lucky.
So I'm gonna say Guardians and probably the Dodgers. As much as I want playoff Kershaw to choke, and he probably still will the games he pitches, I think now having Shohei on the Dodgers, I think it just adds that extra MVP caliber that was on the Angels now on the Dodgers. I think it just adds that extra piece for the Dodgers to finally kind of rely on somebody. Even though baseball really is more of a team sport, but I mean, when you have a guy like Shohei that can just rip off a 450 feet, not yards. 450 yards would be an incredible home run.
Dude's launching a missile
for steroids after.
Good Lord.
It's not even something Barry Bonds could do, and he was caught.
But what I'm hearing is that adding good
If he could
players
show
to
me
your
a little
roster
bat,
helps.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Hitting a 450-yard home run, it's over in the next county.
But he just makes some of those long home runs just look like a nonchalant swing. He's probably easily going to be NL MVP.
You would assume. I mean, I don't like to assume things, but I feel like if there was ever, as of right now, a lock. God, here we go, guys. I'm about to bring out the hot takes that I'm full of, but I feel like you're right. I mean, that one just seems to make sense. What about you, Nate? Oh wait, did you finish? You said the Dodgers.
I'd probably Guardians and Dodgers. Yeah,
Guardians.
Mm-hmm. Or the Cleveland baseball team, which is what they should just be. Every sport should just have a baseball, football, basketball team, whatever you want to call it. I don't know who for the NBA that's going to be, but we'll figure out when the next team relocates.
Vegas. I think Vegas would be fitting for that one.
The Vegas basketball team. It does kind of make a statement. I mean, if we're being totally fair, it does kind of make a statement. I mean, it didn't for Washington for the football team. And I mean, I guess I would argue it didn't really for Cleveland. I mean, this year so far, now with the name change, I guess it's worked, but like Vegas basketball team.
Right? It kind of works.
Like it's kind of like the Harlem Globe, not that they would be that good, but like Harlem Globetrotters, where it's like, okay, it sounds goofy, but then you go watch them, you're like, oh, like two totally different styles of basketball, but like it makes sense. Like it would work.
Yeah, now you can go, Nate. I'll stop cutting you off.
We're master
going back and forth on my National League pick. I think I'm going to settle with Philadelphia. And as much as I would love to see the Twins make it there,
hot take. Do it, Nate.
I'm picking the Twins.
There it is.
Lock it in.
The take that we all knew was coming.
And not only make it there, they're winning the whole thing.
Oh,
now that is even more of a take.
I don't know. I'm not going to say it's impossible. Me, noted baseball expert.
Yes, that's what I peg you as, Zach.
Hey. I watched some games here and there.
The guy
of course.
The guy that got his baseball takes from his father-in-law.
Yeah, that's fair. Hey, he knows baseball better than I do. I might as well go to an expert that actually knows about the sport. So
You're right. It's
all
not
right.
a way to get your sources.
Correct. Exactly. Adam Schefter doesn't do everything himself. He has sources he asks. Come on.
He does. He's just better at tweeting them and being right about it.
Well, yeah, that's fair. All right. Well, in my desire to be different, then of course, I'll go with Milwaukee. They seem like they could.
Okay.
They seem like they could ride a horse.
Debating with Philadelphia.
I mean, Milwaukee is definitely a dark horse in the NL.
As another,
Jackson Chourinho's bat's on fire right now.
Are they? I was gonna say, are they really though? Like they're tied with Philly for the second best record. So I mean, well, that's not totally true because they have one more loss as of right now. But still, the point being is like they're not that far behind. I don't know if I'd call them a dark horse, but I don't think they're favored as much. But I don't know if they're like far enough back to be dark horse. And then what the heck, Orioles?
Okay.
I have no basis for that other than just to be different. So
they have one of the better pitchers of Corbin Burns this season, at least in the American League. So that's not a bad take at all. And I think
just you wait.
Yeah, until they don't win. But and Jackson Holiday, I think is the guy they called up this season. That prospect, so he's gonna be good for them. And I hate that for a team that Boston has to play a lot every year. But it is what it is.
Their AAA team is apparently just nuts.
Yeah. I'd say, and I think every now and then I see a graphic that MLB tweets out of like best farm systems in Major League. The Orioles are usually like in the top 3. I think Boston's like 4 or 5 too. So, as much as not a lot's gone right for Boston this year, I have faith knowing that their farm system is really, really good. It just needs to produce the league that matters.
I mean, I don't know. I go back to like what you said at the beginning of the year where you were like, oh, the Red Sox aren't going to do very good this year. And like, they aren't necessarily like beating the pants off of everybody or anything. They're not doing terrible. I'd say, next year or two, you could see something happen.
Yeah, I did predict them to not be 500. And I mean, they're only 2 games above 500. So a lot can happen in a month, but
you were even talking like way below 500.
Like almost not dead last.
So the fact you were talking last, White Sox level almost, it sounded like. Yeah,
it was. I was not predicting a lot this year, and surprisingly, a lot has happened in my favor, despite one of our center fielders having some insensitive comments made during a baseball game that he said. So I'm not defending him by any means. He also does live in a
thumbs down of disapproval.
Yes. He gets a thumbs down disapproval of everything that has happened, but he lives in a very racially charged city, so that's not great for him either. But
does he live by the harbor?
Probably.
Right next to a Dunkin' Donuts, probably.
I've heard are everywhere up there.
There's only
Unless any more baseball takes, we spent a lot longer than I thought we would on this.
Go stick ball.
I just wanted to mention the White Sox being bad, and then we got to here, so this is fantastic.
I was gonna say this just turns out. Call me crazy, maybe hot take. We're just good at podcasting, guys.
We might be. The streets that Nate listens to
are saying.
Sometimes I have questions about these streets that Nate talks to.
Yeah, I was going to say...
Got my ear to the pavement 30 minutes every day.
What are you listening for? The reverberations are telling me. Is that how that goes? Like you just listen for like...
No, that's exactly how it works,
As cars go by, like, ooh, that's a specific vibration.
What is it, the Richter scale, Nate? You don't depend on that for earthquakes. You just listen to
it's a different... It's the Richter scale.
Oh,
my own.
My God.
Oh, that's good. I like it. Patent that bad boy. Make sure you
clip that.
make sure to patent that. And then if anybody needs any kind of If anybody needs any kind of readings for your futures or anything, definitely talk to him with his Richter scale.
I feel bad for everybody that skipped this baseball segment because you missed an insane joke.
Hey,
You shouldn't skip any of our segments.
that's right.
Yeah, who do you think you are?
The streets don't like you if you skip segments.
Who do you think you are? We're definitely talking to people that skip the segment. So they're not going to hear any of this.
Right.
So they're going to be like, that's where I'll put like the timestamp. Be like, who do you think you are?
Who do you think you are?
Are you skipping again? Okay. Yeah. Now I think we can move on from baseball.
Yes. Now we will go to a quick. Well, this might not be quick considering how long we just spent on baseball, but NFL does kick off depending on when this episode starts. We might already be past the Thursday night game of Ravens Chiefs. We might not be past it. Regardless, NFL season kicks off Thursday with Ravens Chiefs, then Friday and Brazil with the Packers and Eagles. And I feel sorry for anybody that has Twitter in Brazil because you won't be able to tweet thanks to Elmo.
All right,
that's
Timberwolves, Brazil.
That's beside the point. And then you got your full Sunday slate of games, and you got Monday night with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers visiting CMC and the Big Cock Brock Niners with that. And we don't root for injuries. We're not rooting for anything. I'm just gonna say it would be kind of funny if a certain injury happened to a certain part of another leg of a certain quarterback on the Jets.
You're saying the other leg?
Yes, the
other.
Leg.
I thought it'd almost be wildly funny and ironic if it was the same leg.
It could go both ways.
Just both legs.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we're rooting for that. By no means we are a non-injury podcast.
But if it happens, it better be both of them.
Yes.
Well, if it happens, it better look cool or at least be funny.
Yes.
Because, yes, no one roots for injury.
The first time that it happened, they got the slow motion of it, and it kind of looked cool. I'm not going to lie. Like seeing
cool.
that leg literally vibrate as it happened, kind of cool.
I'll give you that one. I can't disagree. I was like, oh, so that's what that looks like when that happens. Interesting.
Because it kind of looks cool. That's all I'm going to say. But
speaking, though, of the Jets and how great their front office is, let's just talk about how they traded for Hassan Reddick, who at the time when they made that trade, I remember talking about this, like, I don't know, that's kind of a dangerous move, I think, but it may work out. You know, and I was like, congrats to the Jets. I think they got a good edge, who they famously have not signed to a contract yet. And as of this recording, still haven't. So call me crazy, but if you get an edge rusher that just so happens to either lead the league in sacks or be top 3 or whatever, you would think that you would sign him. But what do I know? What do I know?
Clearly,
are you in the front office?
I was just going to say. Zach is clearly a front office manager somewhere that we don't know about yet.
Well, to other teams, they'd probably be like, no, we don't want you. You don't have the experience. To the Jets, they might be like, this guy's fucking genius. They're probably sitting there like, why didn't we think of that?
Zach's going to get a call sometime this weekend from Salah being like, hey, we got some ideas for you if you want to head on out here to New Jersey and talk with us a little bit.
I am strictly a work from home man now. You just let me do my stuff from here. Pay me that salary. You bet.
However, huge shout out to Robert Saleh, noted listener of the podcast. So,
yes, I hope Saleh is
I thought for
spending his nights instead of game planning.
I thought for 2 seconds you were dead serious. I was like, how do you know that?
The streets, Zach. We've been
over this.
I'm just surprised those streets can talk to you when you guys are on the opposite sides of the country. I don't think they vibrate that much.
Have you heard of this thing that Eisenhower invented called the interstate system, Zach?
No. I thought Eisenhower invented gravity. Somebody like...
Oh. You're thinking of the other scientist.
Yeah, I believe he started a religion.
Eisenhower was a scientist.
He started Scientology.
So did Tom Cruise, apparently.
No. He's just noted member of it.
Oh,
I think
right.
I got to ask the streets.
Well, yeah, sorry. The streets.
Anyway, once again, we fantastically got off track. We're getting good at this.
We're supposed to be previewing, the NFL season.
Well, we kind of were, and then it just led to that.
Yeah.
Who knew you get Scientology in a Sportsball podcast?
Right.
Not me.
But yeah, should be a very fun season. As a reminder, everybody, the new kickoff rule will happen this weekend. If you didn't watch any of it in preseason, don't be alarmed when you see nobody move on the kickoff but the kicker. And they talk about these certain landing zones, where to start, where not to start, so on and so forth. Probably will take us a couple games to fully get accustomed to it.
If it's anything like the playoff thing for college football, like how they've expanded it after every game now, you see if the season ended right now with the 12 team college football playoff, it's after every like 10 minutes they're talking about it. So the kickoff rule is going to be now it's going to be that for the NFL. So we're going to talk about it after in every commercial.
Yes. And yeah, it's going to be fun. I totally kind of buried the lead on this. A certain former coach of ours got a new job with a certain LA-based football team, as we found out over the weekend.
Did that officially happen?
It did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't see.
Buddy.
I saw it was the sources were saying, but I didn't know if it officially happened yet. But
your sources did not ask the streets.
My source was Reddit.
Did they ask
3 days? It was like 3 days ago. So no, I don't think they asked the street. I have to ask streetwise over here.
Yes.
I don't know, but I think the onside kick after halftime on Sunday Night Football against the Lions is going to be a special moment.
Thankfully,
I was going to say now you can't do that.
To worry about that unless the Rams are down with like so many minutes left in the fourth quarter. So
he'll find a way.
I
believe.
I don't know how I feel about that one. Like. I get it. 99% of the time, it's not going to happen. But, like, I don't get that one.
I didn't expect.
It worked well for Nebraska.
Push on this one.
No. I'm not saying it worked well for Nebraska. But my point being is that, like, I don't know. Like, there was a logic to it. Like, if you're ahead by enough and you try to freak them out or like fake them out with an onside kick, it's ballsy, probably pretty stupid and unlikely to work. So I see why most teams didn't do it. But at the same time, like if you're on fire, there's something to say about trying it. I don't know.
And the most important part, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Just like
except for when your team does it and fails.
Yeah.
Ask me how I know.
It's funny.
So,
I mean, looking back, it was kind of.
It was objectively funny knowing what we know now.
Because I'm about 98% sure we were like, wow, that was a good touchdown that we scored. All right, here goes the kickoff, and what are we doing? And like, I'm pretty sure that was the train of thought for every Nebraska fan.
The best part is even the broadcasters were like, had pretty much that same reaction. They're like, an onside kick. What are we doing?
Thankfully, so if you were a Nebraska fan that was at Ireland, I don't remember when exactly it happened, but I think it was later, where all their systems went down. So they were just passing out games.
Free beer.
After seeing that play, I don't blame them. You might as well go and get 5. Because you knew where the game was going right at that point.
Yep.
But anyways, I never explicitly said what happened, but Scott Frost did get hired by the Rams as a analyst type for special teams, which again, very objectively funny. That is going to be one of his roles, among other multifaceted values, according to whatever Schefter tweeted that he's going to have a role in. So who knows? Good for the Rams, I guess, if that's what they're shooting for. I don't really know.
Maybe a mild take. I don't know. Not a bad landing spot. LA's not a bad team to go to in my head. I don't care for them, but they're not a bad team. Sean McVay's not a bad guy to work for. I wouldn't think. I'd rather work for him in terms of head coaches. And as an analyst, I think that's a good job. I mean, maybe head coaching was a bit over his head at the time. I would say that that's a safe bet, but I think an analyst is a good position.
Hear me out. Sean McVay doesn't do so well the next couple of years. Scott Frost kind of slowly asserts his value in terms of what he can do. Rams sack him. They hire internally, and next thing you know, Scott Frost is a head coach of the Rams.
Seems like a quick uptick in promotion there, but it's probably not impossible.
It sure was when we hired him away from UCF, and
yeah, but that one I felt like that one kind of almost felt like a nepo baby type hire. This definitely doesn't.
Would he also then forget to draft Dylan with the number 1 pick? He was out at gate 25 or something.
Allegedly.
I think. Nate,
Allegedly.
The streets.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
According to the streets.
Allegedly. Was never proven.
If we ever get big enough,
know.
If we ever get big enough to have merch, according to the streets, and that it's just going to be that quote with ellipsis on the end, that's going to be one of them.
Yes.
Write it down now.
Yes. But now we'll circle back to actually previewing the NFL.
Oh, I don't know. I love these tangents.
These tangents are pretty good.
I'm sure our listeners love it too.
Yes, because we love doing this.
We don't even do it
as much as we love our listeners. We appreciate your support, and if we want to do what Oklahoma State did and put a QR code on the back of our shirts that you can support us by Venmoing us on our QR code, that would be much appreciated until Runs Up picks us up as a sponsor. So we're working there. That's our promise to our listeners.
Just so you're aware, that's going to be my Venmo since I'm the one that puts these things together. So pay me is what they're saying. Pay me.
But with the NFL, season kicking off this weekend, I'm very excited to have all the football back in our lives now. Obviously, the biggest question I think going into the season is, can the Chiefs, as much as I hate talking about them, obviously, can they three-peat as champs? And that's, as much as I think I know much about football, and I thought last year was a down year for the Chiefs. Obviously, it wasn't. They didn't really do super well in the regular season, but nothing really matters once you get to the playoffs and have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So that's going to be obviously the top question this year is, can they three-peat? In a division, especially in the AFC West, where you have, pretty much 3 uncertain teams with the Chargers, Raiders, and Broncos of what they're going to look like, what they're going to do. New head coaches with Jim Harbaugh, lots of new rookie talent on both, the Raiders, Broncos, and what Justin Herbert's ultimately going to do. We've always heard just about how much MVP talk he has, and he's just never really have shown it. He has good games and flashes, but, for as much as he was touted out of college, he just hasn't really proved that he can have an MVP type season yet. Whether that was Brandon Staley holding him back, more than likely, if we're going to be honest. Which I'm dearly going to miss him. He was a fun coach to root against, just because he made it easy to. He just messed up every time. But that's going to be a big topic for the Chiefs. Is they're probably obviously very much favored to win the division again. Is how do you do outside of those division games? And I know the AFC West this year has those crossover games with the AFC North of, obviously the Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, Browns, which are going to be very formidable teams in the AFC this year. So it's, how are they going to do with those games? And yeah, I mean, this Thursday night kickoff, the Ravens Chiefs, going to be very big. Now that the Ravens have Derrick Henry, is what can the Ravens kind of get over that hump of having a great regular season and they choke in the playoffs, as they did last year when we knew much that entire game as they should have just ran the ball and they never did for some godly reason.
Well, and now they have Hercules that can run the ball for them.
Yes.
Derrick Henry is a big dude.
Yes.
So
yes, and that's I'm very intrigued to see how they work him in with Lamar Jackson in that offense. Because you have Zay Flowers, obviously a very speedy receiver for the Ravens. So it's how can you work Lamar's speed at quarterback with Derrick Henry's power run, and you have the speed on the outside with Zay Flowers. If they can get that offense going, it could be a very fun offense to watch. Is how can they not choke like they do seemingly every year? The one team that I probably know will take a step back this year is the Bills, as much as they are always touted as like, can they get over the hump of beating Kansas City in the playoffs every year? They're kind of taking a step back and doing kind of what the Broncos are doing, is just kind of selling all of their capital and just trying to develop that young talent. So I will not be surprised if, they don't finish in the top 3 in their division. I'm not saying they're going to finish dead last, but it's Miami's probably going to win that division. Maybe. I don't know. Miami's also a team that lost a lot on defense this year.
I was going to say, I think Miami might be a bigger question mark to me than the Bills. Yeah. They had a fire start last year, and then this
kind
year
of dwindled it down.
Yeah, I was going to say they kind of averaged out. I mean, they didn't have a bad year, I wouldn't say. I think there was a lot of flash, obviously, and Tyreek Hill is still the cheat code that he is.
Right.
I guess. I can't imagine he's going to lose that much of a step just because of age, but who knows? But yeah, I don't know. The Bills and the Dolphins are definitely question marks, I would say. I think that I would agree with that take.
Yeah. And then, looking at the last AFC conference with the Texans, who are most likely going to win that division. I
believe in the Anthony Richardson breakout?
No. Between him and CJ Stroud, no. But yeah, I mean, the Texans got a lot of offensive pieces this offseason with trade for Stephon Diggs. They got Joe Mixon. You're going to get Tank Dell back, who had an outstanding rookie season last year until he got hurt.
Still have Nico Collins.
Who had a breakout year last year. So it's, sometimes having that kind of offensive weapon power is too much to handle. But at the same time, it gives your opposing defenses, you have to focus literally on everybody because they can all make you pay, just based on what they had last year. But, is CJ Stroud going to have a sophomore slump this year?
That was going to be my question. Is does CJ Stroud at least maintain? I think he's going to have maybe not a down year, right? But I mean, last year I don't think anybody expected that.
No, and just because he had all that talk of Ohio State quarterbacks coming to the NFL and don't do well, and he proved everybody wrong last year. So
on a team that wasn't supposed to do well last year,
no,
and then they wild card last year.
Yeah.
So
and I love D'Amico Ryan too. That's when the Broncos were going through their coaching hire. That's who I really wanted them to get because I thought he would have been a great. I mean, he's obviously a great head coach, and that's who I wanted Denver to get before they got Sean Payton. But D'Amico's a great head coach too. So
that's going to be the other interesting thing too, is all the different coaches coming in that like the new head coaches. So like the Falcons got. I should have said that before I looked. Yeah, he's the one I'm curious on how he's going to do.
Yeah,
just because the Falcons have not necessarily been noted to be very good lately, so I feel like he's got a tough task.
I mean, his main job is to get the ball to the good players, which the guy before him decided not to do. So
correct. There
will never be another coach like Arthur Smith who objectively refuses to give the ball to Bijan
or Kyle Pitts.
Yep,
ask me how I know that one. I'm not a Falcons fan, but ask me how I know.
So
he's got Turco chains now.
That division's going to be a dumpster fire again.
What do you mean? It's going to have Baker in it still. Like, come on.
I I couldn't even confidently tell you who I think is going to win that division. I know it's not going to be Carolina, but the other three, I don't know.
You know what? I'll lock it in right now. Here we go. Another hot take. Locking it in right now. I am actually going to say the Bucks. I think they win it.
I'm going to say Falcons.
Well, shoot.
Looks like Andy's stuck with the Saints.
Do I take Derek Carr just for fun?
Taysom Hill.
The answer is no.
The only thing for the Falcons for me is it's 100% an unknown coach.
Mm-hmm.
Where at least with like the Bucks and in this same case like Baker and whatnot, and they still got some weapons that they can work offensively. I don't think defense is necessarily the greatest thing, but they're not bad. I think they've got enough solid of team still that like as long as they can just play like to what I think they should be able to play, I think that's why they would win it. I don't think it's going to necessarily be like they're going to run away with it.
Right.
I think it's just going to be like they're going to gut it out until the end, and then that's who's going to win.
First team to 500 wins the division.
Yeah. Because like looking at the rest of these, I think there's going to be clear runaways for a lot of these, and then that's the one where it's like,
yeah,
it's not going to be the NFC beast like it is every other year, it seems.
Quote unquote beast, depending on what year it is. Well, we'll just go. Well, at this point, we've done division by division. So before we get to your guys' divisions, we'll go NFC West. Probably, I think the easy pick is going to be the Niners to win that division again. But
I'll be interested to see how Arizona looks.
Yeah, and obviously, having Marvin Harrison is going to be a big help to Kyler.
Assumedly,
and not coming off ACL tear.
Yeah. It depends on how Kyler looks, and Kyler has obviously shown flashes where he could be really good, and then he can be really bad.
So, when's the new Call of Duty come out?
Sometime this fall. Yes.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So
is it November? Like
mid
season? like right as it starts to get really important.
Let's.
I mean, football is a game that every game is important just because there's
October
so few
25th
games, but still October
25th.
That's even worse.
So,
he's probably playing the beta right now.
Get Kyler playing now, because after that, you're not going to want to play him in fantasy.
Correct, Nate.
The Seahawks again might do the same thing that they did last year. Just depends on how good Geno looks. I think wide receiver room. You still have DK Metcalf, but that's like an aging wide receiver room too.
I think Tyler Lockett's there still too.
Yeah,
they also have
Jackson
Smith and Jigba as well.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago, I mean, Metcalf and Lockett were a solid 1-2 duo, but they're kind of getting up there in age, and Kenneth Walker is still a really young running back, but it's the Seahawks could be hit and miss, and obviously I don't want them to win game 1. And that's only because they play Denver game 1. But that's beside the point.
And it must.
I don't know what they do after that. Just not game 1.
I must just have a cold, dead heart because when I see that, and Kenneth Walker didn't play terrible, but when I see it's Seahawks didn't do anything because of him because he ran all over us at Nebraska that one year.
He was kind of good.
Darn, he's not, and that's not fair to him. I'm sure he's listening. Nate, what are the streets saying? Does Kenneth Walker listen to our podcast?
Let's see. Yes, he does.
You
he's
liar!
He's actually very angry right now.
You liar!
No, he's on the dynasty team. I need him.
Your ear was not to the ground. You're a liar.
But that's, and then obviously we kind of talked about the Rams already and their special fun hire. That's really all I have for the Rams.
Therefore, the Rams are going to win it.
Probably.
And they got Kyron Williams returning punts for him.
Yeah.
Yes.
To your point, though, Andy, I think the 49ers.
It's probably going to be the 49ers again.
I mean, unless Brock Purdy takes a massive step down. I mean, everybody was giving him. He has to I think this year he has to beat the. What is it? The system QB talk that everybody's like, oh, that's all he does. He's just a system QB. I'm an Eagles fan, so is Jalen Hurts. If we're arguing that, I'm just saying.
Right.
I think Jalen Hurts is the better quarterback because I'm biased, obviously, but point stands, like
squat 3,000 pounds.
that too. But
Right.
I think also like Hurts has more ability to run. That's beside the point. Like if Brock Purdy can beat the system QB allegations, quote unquote, it's
Mhm.
not what they are, but you know what I mean. Like if he can beat the old adage of he's just a system QB, give him receivers that aren't number 1 and number 2 and number 3 in the league.
Right.
What can he do? I don't think he'll have a problem with that. Being that Brandon Ayuk came back and he still got Christian McCaffrey.
And Trent Williams finally
And Trent
signed his
Williams.
contract today, so they finally got all their players locked down.
And George Kittle's still there. I mean, they're
Yes.
still good.
They're still good.
So, they're still good.
It's just can they keep it up yet again and do what they do every single year? Which Kyle Shanahan's a master at that. So I'm just gonna say probably yes.
When you say he's a master at that, are you saying that he's really good about making it really, really close to the end to winning it all and then not doing that? Because
Yes.
I don't want that fully.
He excels at that.
I just don't want the 49ers to win anything. So whatever. But
Unless they play the Chiefs. That I do. Zach.
I'm pretty sure I even said in like leading up to the Super Bowl that I said I was cheering for the Meteor.
Yeah, I mean we all were.
Everyone was,
yeah.
All right. And we're only going to go to your division next, Zach, because I think Nate's division probably is going to be the most fun to talk about. Just because there's
That's
a
fair.
lot. There's a lot
That's
going
fair.
on there. It's not fun to talk about too, but there's a lot to talk about with the NFC North this year.
There's a lot to talk about with the NFC East, like the return of Danny Dimes.
Yeah, and objectively speaking, though, it's either going to be Philadelphia or Dallas.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
But I am going to say I don't know if
it blows us all out of the water.
I don't know. I obviously I'm biased because I'm a Philly fan, but like I think Philadelphia just has the best offense in the NFC
And now you
outside
got
of
Saquon.
maybe the 49ers.
Right.
And so it's like, and
But
then
don't
now
worry,
we've got,
Cowboys got Zeke back, so everything's all fine.
yeah. And then now they got Kellen Moore, who I said when they hired him, good hire, I thought, and also like pretty good offensive, coach. And then they got Vic Fangio for defense.
Which is a great defensive coordinator.
Great
for Denver.
defensive coordinator.
Offensive coordinator for Denver, but a great defensive coordinator.
That was so weird that didn't work out, but I mean, that's the other thing is that
was excellent. They just had a crappy offense.
Oh, well, okay.
And
but either way, like
it was from the rotational of QBs that Denver went through, but that's beside the point.
My only concern, not necessarily with Vic himself, I think he's still a genius on the defensive coordinator side of things, is I think he's made a comment here, like when he was hired, like, oh, he wants to retire in Philadelphia, which means either like we may get he is old, but I mean, like we may only get like 2 or 3 good years before we have to transition again as an Eagles fan to somebody else. And so then it's like, okay, well, so we go through this carousel again in a couple of years. And if we have a really good defense this year, and I guess if it works out and we win a Super Bowl, awesome. But like, if not,
right.
Was the payoff worth it?
He's a good defensive coordinator. You guys are really going to love him. I still kind of wish that he was for Denver, but that's, it's
done and dusted, Andy. Done and dusted.
I know. It's fine. It's whatever.
On to the NFC North then.
Yes. And a lot to talk about. Not just because it's Nate's team, but
that's part of it.
The other 3 teams have a lot going on too.
But like, the NFC North just has the most storylines to watch.
It is. And it's
straight up.
It's like, can the Lions keep on track of what they did last year? Are they going to be the same team as last year? And then obviously, for Chicago, the biggest one is, Caleb Williams, and that whole storyline of, do the Bears finally have a quarterback? The Packers is, can Jordan Love continue what he's been doing? And considerably, they have a much younger team. I did see a stat. I think Green Bay, has the youngest average roster size or the youngest average age of roster this year. And that's like an average of like 25.6 years combined. So Green Bay has a really young team this year. how are they going to do? And then obviously Nate's side with, you drafted JJ, then
The Darnold.
he dies, and then you're on
I
Sam
believe
Darnold
I had
season.
a note at the bottom of my screen there. For those that missed it, said the Sam Darnold Revenge Tour.
Yes.
I brought it back just in case.
Yes.
And obviously, if you're audio only, like you don't see this, but if you're watching on video, that's Nate's tag.
I'll do both at the same time. Sync them up and do it at the same time.
Ooh.
Mute the video, but sync up the audio on the podcast.
Spend longer trying to do that rather than just watch one. I love it. You know what? Yes, give us more streams. Eventually, we can get paid.
Yes. But that's why there's a lot of storylines with the NFC North this year. Is you have so much going on, and there's no really clear. I mean, if you had to pick kind of a clear favorite for the division, it's probably Detroit, just based on what happened last year and just the uncertainty and the unknowns of the other three teams this year. I mean, Green Bay, you kind of know with Jordan Love, but the rest of the team, you don't really know yet. And then obviously Minnesota, with all the hype around JJ, and then what happened to him. So, how is Sam Darnold seeing ghosts going to happen this year, if it happens? But you still have, hopefully it doesn't. But then you have, obviously the arguably, either the top receiver or the top second receiver, depending on who you ask. And JJ, the other JJ, I should say.
It was going to be so cool.
Yeah, I know. JJ to JJ. Maybe next year.
So up until also the picture that you sent us of your fantasy team, Nate, I didn't realize that Hawk was out for that little bit.
Yeah.
I didn't realize
Remember when his ACL exploded?
Got obliterated.
For whatever reason, that just had escaped my mind. So I was like, what? And then, memory had to come back. I was like, oh yeah, his leg died.
Right.
He's supposedly making good progress, and I think the expectation is he'll be back right at the end of the 4 games, but
right,
he's out for those first 4. So,
well, what every football player should famously do when they're coming back from injury is rush it. So, just saying,
yes,
I mean,
it worked out for Aaron Rodgers because he definitely played at the end of last season, like he said he would.
Mm-hmm. With the PUP list, obviously, he can't play until after game 4, but. Point stands is if he's good to go by game 3, he should be full practice by game 3. Don't rest it longer. Push it 100% as soon as you think it's healed.
I'll relay that to the streets.
Now hold on.
Make sure those sources of your streets get to the other reliable source.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, how exactly do you transfer? Okay, we keep coming back. We keep coming back to these streets. There's a lot of questions here. How do you transfer what you hear from the streets to somebody else via the streets? How do you what?
Unfortunately, the lore of the streets will have to be saved for an off-season video, but thank you for the question.
We do this year-round. There is no such thing as off-season. Now, we did poorly this last time, but we're going to fix that next year. So keep that in mind. Street lore coming in 2025.
Yes.
My vote goes to the Lions. Just gonna say it. Sorry, Nate.
I think that's just the safe pick. Obviously, just based on what happened last year, they didn't really lose a whole lot this offseason. And Dan Campbell loves kneecaps, so
much he eats them.
Yeah, so it's hard not to just outwardly just pick them because you have so much uncertainty with the other 3 teams until kind of the season gets going and how it shapes out. But with that,
hold on.
Predictions.
I was gonna say we gotta have predictions for our teams.
Obviously, yes. I was getting to that.
Oh, sorry. You made it sound like we were gonna go to a whole different subject, and I was like, wait.
Well, I mean, yes, we're getting there.
Good,
but as much as I don't want to pick the Chiefs, it's just so hard not to, and I don't know how much pressure of the 3-peat's going to be on them because you still have Patrick Mahomes, and you still have Andy Reid, and you still have Travis Kelce, who didn't have that great of a year last year, but still had an impact in the playoffs. He's still going to have an impact this entire season because he's Travis Kelce.
It turns out those Kelce brothers are or were good at football.
Yes.
Just
I will let you deduct which one is still playing and which one's not playing.
if you don't know at this point, just remember one is dating Taylor Swift and other one was voted sexiest man of the year. So those they're not the same. They're not the same people.
Which, Zach, I'm gonna go Chiefs Eagles. I'm gonna give you some hope.
All right.
The safe pick again would be Chiefs 49ers, but I don't know, man. Choke. I think they choke.
I mean, I'm gonna be. It's not really a homer. I don't live in Philadelphia, obviously, but like the homer pick for me would be the Eagles, obviously. But I think I'm gonna go the same way. Like,
what about a Philly Falcons NFC Championship?
That would be wild. The Bird Bowl. Actually,
cousin throws for 5,000.
This is actually this is one that I wanted a few years ago. And I think I don't know if I fully believe that this will happen, but I would love to see it. Is the Eagles and the Bengals.
Okay.
Bengals are Bengals. I think could still be good.
The AFC North this much, but I mean, it's going to be between the Ravens or the Bengals. I think.
I still think the Bengals are good as long as Burrow stays healthy.
Yeah,
and I know that's a big if because he hasn't necessarily.
That was the issue last year. He went out and they did well with whoever their backup was, but obviously it was
Jake
not
Browning.
The same. Yeah, it was obviously not the same as when Burrow was playing. So.
He was surprisingly good for what I expected.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean Burrow coming back, Jamar Chase,
Slim Shady joke.
Slim Shady.
If Jamar Chase gets his contract stuff figured.
Yeah, he still hasn't practiced yet, according to today's reports, and their game is Sunday. So
fantastic.
Probably a little scary for Bengals and fantasy players. So keep that watch on whoever owns Jamar Chase in fantasy.
That actually just reminds
he might not play week 1. Not because he's hurt, just because he won't get paid.
T. Higgins was the other one I was thinking.
I have him. That would be he's wide receiver 1 for week 1, and boy, that would be spectacular for 1 week.
But yeah, I'm not confident that necessarily that's how it's going to shake out, but that would be my dream scenario. So I'll go with it.
I would love that too. I'm just
that'd be a good game.
Safer option of what I know, and I know Patrick Mahomes is really good.
Weird,
surprisingly,
weird,
interesting.
Really
hot take alert.
I was gonna say this 100% seems like a hot take.
We should clip that and make sure we'll revisit it at the end of 10 seasons.
I need to get like a siren or something in my office so that I can just it would be a hot take alert.
10 years from now, we'll be talking about how I said Patrick Mahomes was good after his 3rd Super Bowl victory. Yeah, really hot take for that time.
That's almost like saying Tom Brady was really good at football, Andy.
After his 6th Super Bowl.
Just saying.
I know that's on me. I will take the brunt if he's not good.
If Patrick Mahomes is not good at football this year, I'll eat a sock.
Will you do the FSU guy?
Yeah, do the FSU guy.
What did he do? I can't remember what he said he would eat.
He's supposed to do.
Yeah,
what's he supposed to do?
He's supposed to eat dog poop out of a red Solo cup and film himself doing it.
Not doing that. No.
Quickly deleted his account after FSU got their
understandably
rocked last night.
Not doing that. I'll own the sock. I don't know how you
do it for the pod.
No, I'll do that. Now hold on. What are we determining is bad at football though? Because he might still be good and they might not win it all. That doesn't seem like a fair line.
What was Jameis Winston's numbers a couple years ago? When he had an equal interception.
Oh, it was ratio. His 30 for 30 was 30 interceptions to 30 touchdown passes. Whatever. Yeah. If he does, okay, fine. If he's that bad this year, I'll figure out how to eat a sock and then I'll.
Yeah, 2019 with Tampa, 33 touchdowns, 30 interceptions.
I don't know how one eats a sock, but
He
I
threw
will
for
do it.
5,000 yards that year too. That's incredible.
He was on. He was on my one fantasy team in our league. Not the dynasty one, the other one. That he had like a 62-point game for me, and I was like, well. That was nice because then I forgot to put somebody else in, so they had 0 points. I'm like, I think he made up the difference. We're okay. I ended up winning.
Study that.
That's actually a pretty good segue into my takes.
Perfect.
That's actually going to be my hot take for the season.
That James Winston's beating Deshaun for the Browns starting job.
I would love that actually.
I don't know if we should use the phrase Jameis Winston, anybody beating Deshaun Watson in any capacity. Let's calm down.
It might be deserved to beat Deshaun
for the job.
For the job.
But my hot take is that Will Levis is going to be the next Jameis Winston. So this will be his 30-30 season.
Okay.
He's just going to be chucking deep balls to DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley. That's all it's going to be. Calvin Ridley is probably going to be betting on at least 2 to 3 touchdowns by himself per game. So it's like it's going to work out for everyone. So that's the hot take there for the season.
I don't think the Titans will be sneaky good, but they have like some offensive pieces there to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that something is, but they could do something.
Yep.
Could
at least be competitive.
Yes. Otherwise, nothing will happen.
I think my picks are going to be... I'll go even weirder than I was originally going to go.
This could be anything. knowing the stuff you normally throw out there, Nate, this could be anything.
Yeah, Did you talk to the streets first?
I did. They said
Jets
it was bold.
Panthers?
They said it was bold.
That's exactly where we're heading, Zach.
Bionic JJ McCarthy and the Vikings.
Yes, please.
No, originally I was thinking Miami because I feel like there's a world where they are just a strictly super fast offensive team and put up 80 points a game because they can.
It has happened.
They might give up 50 in the meanwhile, but they probably just outscore everyone else. Like
basically the UFC with Scott Frost, where they would score like 65 points a game and then nobody else could catch them because they were just fast and scoring on offense.
Yeah, like
I remember the game vividly last year,
and it wouldn't surprise me. So but the whole season.
Yeah, they can do it. They can certainly put up 70.
The old YOLO Tyreek down there somewhere.
Yep.
That's exactly what that game was.
But I'm actually going to go with not the sophomore slump. I'm going to say the Houston Texans are going to make it.
Let's see, that's
CJ Stroud. Yep. Stephon Diggs. The offense will be there. I think the defense, they got pieces. It could be solid. D'Amico Ryans, if I remember right. Defensive guy. So
they got somebody from the Cowboys, I think. I don't remember who.
Pieces are there. So if they could put it all together, I wouldn't be super surprised, and I think it'd be exciting. And for my NFC matchup, as much as it pains me to say, I'm going to go with Detroit.
Okay. I can take it. The Texans are my follow-up. I was like, I don't know. I could see them having a heck of a year.
Mm-hmm. If CJ Stroud just keeps, progressing a little bit each week, if he even just stays consistent, that's going to be really good for that offense.
Their third string is Case Keenum. Oh,
he's still in the league.
Damn. Not that I root for injuries, but
whoa.
That would be. I definitely shouldn't, considering.
Well, Case Keenum has to come off of IR first.
Well, we're assuming that's going to happen. Then we can talk about it.
That's a future us problem.
Yeah, the Texans are going to. I would guess outside of Detroit, they're probably going to be the second fan favorite pick.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to just do the typical 49ers Chiefs, people are probably going to do Lions or Texans. Essentially,
that seems fair.
that would be an extremely fun Super Bowl to watch.
Mhm.
Just from the aspect of Dan Campbell yelling, and then, those offenses would be super fun to watch too.
Going for head coaching matchups, Lions versus Jimmy Harbaugh and the Chargers would be. I think that would be fun to watch.
I don't know.
That would be great.
Just like the press conferences in the lead up would be incredible.
That would be great.
God, Harbaugh's such a goober. I can't wait to play him twice a year.
I feel like him and Sean Payton are going to be interesting
Very interesting.
Interesting personalities to see how
Yes.
those work out.
To meet at midfield. But
Do we want to put in a prediction for our teams for the games for the opening games for this weekend?
sure.
was
I
gonna
hope Denver has a fun time.
say, that's not the type. Of about.
Okay, wait.
I'll start with mine, just because I actually had this one kind of thought about. 27-24 Eagles.
Okay. Oh my God, Denver's a favorite? There's no way I would have guessed that. Absolutely no way. They're only a touchdown favorite, but there's no way I would have picked them as the favorite. I do think that we go to Seattle this time and learn how to. Oh, never mind. Denver's not a favorite. That's right. Okay. Wrong line. Seattle's the favorite, but only 5.5. But I think Denver goes to Seattle this time around with a new quarterback and learns how to run a 2-minute offense when it actually needs to run a 2-minute offense and use its timeouts, unlike a certain quarterback and head coach from 2 years ago or 3 years ago. 3 years ago. No, it was 2 years ago.
That was 2.
Yeah. Because Hackett thankfully only served 1 year, and that was enough for me.
Nathaniel Hackett couldn't hack it as a head coach. Hey.
Yeah, I agree with you. That very much did not work. I'm gonna say I'll go 33-27 Denver. I think it's gonna be a high scoring game just because I'm still uncertain on Denver's defense yet, but everything that led me to believe that Sean Payton as the quarterback whisperer can move an offense certainly can do it with Bo Nix this year. So a lot of optimism, but I'm hoping Denver has a winning season, and
You hope they have fun.
I hope they have fun. It would be nice to finish 500 or above, something that they have not done since the Super Bowl that they won. They've lost. They've had however many losing seasons, 8 or 9 at this point. I don't even know anymore. Everything's just time's a construct.
Wild.
Time's a flat circle.
That's never any less shocking every time you say that.
Yeah,
Like
it's
the fact that you've said that every time, and I'm always surprised somehow. I'm like, my goodness, that's crazy.
it's equally as equivalent as Nebraska being the last Power 5 team to make it to a bowl game since whenever.
What other teams are you fans of?
Sad ones.
Huh. Sensing a pattern here, Andy.
Yeah. It's fun.
All right. Do you have a rooted interest in Florida State by chance?
No, but we will get to them very quickly.
On to Nate.
Ooh. Okay, so
How the Vikings gonna do?
we're going to New Jersey to play the Giants. I think that's where they play because apparently New York and New Jersey are the same thing as the NFL. But I'm gonna go 31-13. I think Mr. Darnold is going to outduel Danny $, and
I would hope so.
I think
so.
Brian Flores is going to blitz at least 70%, and it's not going to be a fun afternoon for Mr. $.
Mr.
And to be honest,
Remember,
I'm scared for
that
like
money.
how the rest of the season goes if we lose to the Giants, because we go Niners, Texans, Packers, Jets, Lions.
Oof, dog.
Just back to back to back.
That's
Holy
So,
crap.
That's what we call the gauntlet.
That's a schedule.
That is indeed a schedule.
The back end of the schedule gets a little better, but I mean, yeah, I think ceiling is probably fringe playoff team. Otherwise, kind of same boat as Andy. If we can hit 500, stay competitive at least. I'll be excited.
Yeah, that's
right on.
That's where I'm at. All right, we'll do a quick kind of overview of college football because I know we're going to want to talk a lot about it here in Nebraska very quickly. Like we had mentioned before, if you're a fan of Florida State, I'm sorry. Turns out people that go to play in the Ireland game and then come back don't do well. And I'm sensing a pattern and a trend, unless you're Notre Dame, who played there last year and still won. But famously, they went to Ireland, lost on a last-second field goal to Georgia Tech, and then last night got absolutely rocked by Boston College.
As we all predicted, of course.
Yeah, obviously, as we all predicted, is it's the number 10 team to go 0-2 straight out of the gate. Yeah, who would have thought that? Certainly not us. And I'm not even being facetious about that.
Against Georgia Tech and Boston College too.
Yes, for a team that wants to get out of the ACC because it's not a hard conference, and they're sitting at 0-2 against teams that they easily should have beaten. That's wild.
Not the best look.
No.
Not great.
So very funny for that to happen. Other general notes: Georgia's still good. I know, shocker. Absolutely routed Clemson.
I was going to say Georgia being good isn't the surprise. It's how bad Clemson.
Dabo is dead.
Now, when we were talking about freezing cold takes earlier, mine for saying, I think Clemson could make a surprise run at the playoffs. After that, no. They cannot.
I think Dabo seats is mildly getting a little bit hotter and hotter as we go, and it's hard to say just because he had two great quarterbacks at the time when he kind of went on his run. And obviously what we know about Deshaun Watson now is not great, but in college, he was a phenomenal quarterback. And then you follow that up with Sunshine, Mr. Trevor Lawrence, who was phenomenal in college level too. So, it's kind of one of those things to where he's kind of going through a rough patch of not having the right quarterback at the time and everything. But, it's probably going to start heating up that seat a little bit sooner rather than later.
Not using NIL either.
Yeah, and not using NIL, and he's been very much adamantly against it, which is insanely stupid, considering that is what college athletics is going to as a whole now. So that happened. So sorry if you're a fan of Clemson too.
That happened. It did.
It did.
And we were there for that.
And we were. The LSU USC game on Sunday. That was a fun game. USC might be better than I thought they were going to be. It's obviously one game, and LSU just might not be as good as I thought they were going to be either. And Brian Kelly, which if you haven't watched his post-conference game comments yet, super funny. Watch that water bottle fly up in the air too.
When I first saw that, I thought like the water bottle was like the dude's hand because like they have a zoomed out view where like there's a guy holding the microphone. I thought that was the guy's hand that like jumped up, but then if you watch the guy's hand, he's just like right there.
Yes.
He's like it didn't move. I'm like that's more impressive than how high the water bottle went, in my opinion.
My favorite meme I saw out of that game was it was some guy kicking a TV, and the caption was Caleb Williams when he finds out Lincoln Riley has a defense. So
he just had to fire the last coach.
Yeah, so that was funny, but that was a good game. And same with the A&M Notre Dame game on Saturday night too. That A&M choked away, which good for them.
Trev,
so sad. Trev, so sad. We're so sad that A&M lost. Oh no,
darn.
So that was probably, I think that had like 8.2 million viewers that watched that game, which is probably like the highest Saturday night game they've had in quite some time on ABC. So I think that's just people wanting football back, because I don't know who would willingly want to watch those two teams play. Certainly not me. I would hate watch them, and that's kind of what I did. was like, this is football, but I don't really want to watch these teams at the same time. But outside of that, there were really no other big storylines. There were no major upsets. And which is kind of
really tried.
Yeah. Idaho did try against Oregon, and they made it look fun.
Did
outside of the Florida State being the upsets, but that was really about it in terms of big
did we
teams
talk
going
about
down.
Colorado's last week game already? Did we talk about that last?
No,
that hadn't happened yet.
No.
So that to me,
and I kind of
storyline.
Yeah, I was kind of saving that for the preview, because we can kind of talk about what they did when we preview the Nebraska game.
Because the only other one that I thought of that was maybe slightly surprising in terms of just like, I didn't get to watch all of these because I was away, but the Michigan game, like they beat Fresno State, but like
it wasn't convincing.
Kind of a spoiler alert for what we're going to talk about with the Huskers, but like it wasn't a convincing win to say you guys just won the national championship. And I understand they lost a lot of talent, but like there's almost a big drop off. Like they won well enough, but it's one of those where you're like, this is definitely not. It's closer than it should have been if we're looking at it on paper.
There was a point where it was like 23-10 and Fresno State was driving and they threw a interception. I think those returned for touchdown in the red zone. So like it was on the brink there, being real interesting.
And as much as I don't want to say this, especially as Husker fans, Texas might just be kind of back. Like they need to prove it, obviously. But
it was
like
Colorado State. Let's pump the brakes there.
I'm not going to say that, but I also don't think Michigan's going to have a great time on Saturday.
No, I mean
Texas will win that game. I don't think it's going to be as a blowout, but it's probably going to be a couple score victory for Texas for sure.
I'm not disagreeing with any of that. All I'm saying is that the fact that they shut Colorado State out entirely, even in the fourth quarter, means that the talent level that's all the way there is impressive.
The only thing Michigan has going for it is that it's Ann Arbor, and that's about it. But I mean, that's going to be a fun game to watch this weekend too, because it's the 11 a.m. game. Obviously, Nebraska's game is a night game, so don't have to worry about that game interfering. But I mean, that's like your marquee matchup this weekend is Texas Michigan.
I'm going out to a golf tournament this weekend, and I'm hoping that we're done by 6:30. I think we should be because we start fairly early, but I really hope we're done by 6:30.
Right.
Wait, hold on, real quick. Other one, Iowa scoring 40 points. That seems illegal.
like I said,
Valley team also.
That's a borderline war crime. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, yeah, they did pass the ball really well. And there's a tweet I saw from Chris Hazel, whatever his name is. He's the Iowa beat reporter, Homer guy too on CBS. Can't stand the guy on Twitter. But he screenshotted like Cade McNamara numbers and Dylan's numbers for this weekend. It's like Nebraska went out and got a 5-star quarterback, and Cade McNamara still outplayed him. And I'm like, dude, Dylan played 2.5 quarters, and Cade played the entire game in a blowout game. So it's like, obviously, I would hope a guy that played a quarter and a half more and passed the ball more would have better stats than the guy that played 2.5 quarters. Like,
also, correct me if I'm wrong. I could be, but I'd argue that UTEP is a step above. Maybe not a huge step, but like I'd argue that
above
UTEP
Illinois
is
State,
like,
yes,
yeah, above Illinois State, like
yes. So it's like
after watching UTEP and Nebraska play, I was like, yeah, Nebraska won handedly. Spoiler, but like UTEP didn't play a bad game. They were just eventually got to a point where they were just outmatched because of just that talent gap. But like Illinois State, yeah, like no offense to them, like kind of the Colorado NDSU argument. Like Colorado should have won. Like when you look at it, like, yeah, that's supposed to happen.
Thanks, refs.
So I don't know. That's just such a wild comparison in my head. It's
right.
Like, that doesn't let's save it for when they actually play each other.
Yeah.
Or when they all play when Dylan actually plays 4 quarters, probably this weekend.
It's yes.
Hopefully not. If he's.
I was gonna say if he's not playing
Hopefully
all four
not.
quarters,
Hopefully
If
not.
we
But
want to be up 30-0 at halftime, I would
Yeah.
be, or 37 at halftime.
yeah,
either something
I
really
won't say no.
bad or something really
So
good.
be it.
Anything else before we get to the big
No.
one?
I was just looking through the games. The only
So was
one
I.
that really kind of jumps out is Wisconsin, South Dakota. I think could be interesting. Wisconsin seems like they started pretty slow.
That was the one I was looking
They
for.
started slow. against
Wisconsin
Western
looks
Michigan.
like they might not be quite there yet either. So Wisconsin could be a
No.
good game if we get all of our ducks in a row.
Mhm.
Could be a good year for Nebraska. I
I
know
will
we
agree
say
with
that
you.
every damn year, but like there is something that's different about this.
Yes, I would
mean,
agree.
with that, let's just get into it.
Yes. So Nebraska wins its first season opener since 2019.
That's an
Amazing
even
stat.
worse stat.
Yeah, amazing, amazing and worse stat. Depending on all the bad crap that has happened with Nebraska, but I mean a lot of the storyline was like I had said last episode, and what the rest of the season is going to be is your story A, 1A is going to be Dylan, and then 1B is going to be whatever happens game to game, and so on and so forth. But yeah, Nebraska opens its season 48-7 win over the UTEP Miners, and Dylan proved why he is the ranking that he was out of high school. It was so just relaxing to know that. I mean, we haven't had that type of a stress-free game in quite some time. Even the non-conference wins of like the past couple of years that were like,
North Dakota.
North Dakota or,
Mhm.
Louisiana Tech or Northern
Georgia
Illinois.
Southern.
Georgia's like none of those games
Same
were
game
relaxing
got him
at
fired.
all.
No. Georgia Southern by far being probably the and again, no disrespect to Georgia Southern, or not again, but like no disrespect to Georgia Southern, but that was a game that we should have 100% won.
Right. And that entire game outside of the, when it was tied 7-7, the rest of that was like, this is a very stress-free football game. Nebraska didn't have those back-breaking penalties, mistakes that always shoot themselves in the foot. Don Dale's one fumble that didn't come back to bite them in the butt because we got a safety immediately after that. So, I mean, it was just a game where it was all around complimentary football. You had the offense doing what it had to do. The defense was as good as we predicted so far. Stepped up when it needed to after it gave up that quick tempo touchdown. They responded very nicely after that. And special teams didn't mess up. Obviously Alvano made the 120-yard kick, but Buschini didn't shank a putt. We returned kicks on both sides of the ball, and kept the mistakes to a minimum. Like I said, we just had the one fumble, but 3 total penalties the entire game, and we had 2 very on in that first series. But then after that, it was pretty much mistake-free football after that. So it was one of those just overall non-conference games that you should go win. You're expected to win. You took care of your business. Things that Nebraska should have been doing the past 5-6 years that we just were not accustomed to because we kept losing those games where we made them tighter than they needed to be. And I know I saw that stat, like Nebraska played 107 guys the entire game in terms of, your starters and then your second, third strings. I mean, you got 107 guys in there with a real-time game, like scrimmage. I mean, not a scrimmage, but you got 107 different total guys in there for live game reps. And that's just huge going forward, knowing that you put them in a live game situation. Okay, we have depth here, or we need to work on this with our backups, third string, so on and so forth. And you're just kind of seeing what your backups are doing when they have live game reps against not yourselves in a not practice type situation. So we haven't had, like I said, one of those games in quite some time where we could just sit back, relax, knowing that we weren't going to do anything bad to mess up this game, despite that's all we've known for many, many years. And like I said, I know the story is obviously going to be Dylan, and rightfully so. I mean, Dylan looked as calm as ever in that pocket. I mean, in the entire, I think, season is going to be just his Mahomes-like-esque tendencies, throwing motion, so on and so forth. But, You expect that from a guy that trains with him and trains with his staff and other coaches. You expect to have he's going to have some of those tendencies, and I know it's probably going to get boring pretty quickly of what the broadcasters and everybody talks about. But I mean, what else do you expect?
Hey, if it results in us getting wins, I don't care how boring the broadcast is.
Absolutely.
If this is the corner that it takes, or if this is where we turn the corner,
right?
That we've been saying for the past decade, it feels like. So be it.
Yeah, and I mean the offensive line looked great. I think Dylan. I think he had a sack. He was sacked once or twice, but outside of that, I mean, yeah, the offensive line on those plays where Dylan was just kind of sitting back there in the pocket, going through his progression. I'm like, we haven't had that in a while. Like we've always even with Casey Thompson. I mean, he was taking a step or two, and then he'd immediately have to try to scramble and make a decision. Where Dylan could just sit in the pocket, step up, go through his reads, and get the ball to our amazing transfer wide receivers that I knew I had a little bit of confidence in, but after seeing Nayor and Banks go through that game, they're going to be huge assets this season. And I know Rule had said, I think yesterday, in terms of the wide receiver room, that we probably won't see Malachi this year. And he's still kind of hurt. He's not 100%, but I think and he said that we just have so much depth in that wide receiver room is that we can afford to kind of treat this as a redshirt year for him if we need to. And obviously if they have to burn the red shirt, if we get super desperate, they will. But, we have, like I said, Nayor, Banks, you have Bullock, you have Carter Nelson, who they used a lot this year. Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, who's kind of more of a special teams guy this year. But then you have Jana Bonner, you have Jacoby Barney. You just have a lot of depth in that wide receiver room as you can kind of afford to let him heal. I mean, Jalen Lloyd, too. I didn't see him, I don't think, at all Saturday, but he's also there in the depth. So Rule, I think, wants to redshirt Malachi, try to keep this as a redshirt year. Because Nair and Banks, I think, are seniors this year, so they're going to be gone after the season. But that they're going to provide for you this year, and you have depth at that wide receiver room that you can kind of sit back and just see how the season plays out. But they were amazing. Our running back room, I think Downdell he probably still is probably going to take the majority of the team reps. I know we saw all four backs that game, and up until that fumble, Downdell looked like he was going to take the workhorse. And I mean, some of those runs were explosive. He hit the holes. He looked like he had the lead back mentality, but as we had said prior to the season, if you fumble or if you make a turnover mistake, you're going to sit, and the offensive staff kept to that. They sat him. We didn't see him the rest of the game. Gabe Irvin got in there for a couple times. Emmett Johnson looked fantastic. Ramir looked great too. So that running back room is probably still going to be by committee, but I kind of think after the first game, Dante kind of has that edge right now, but Emmett Johnson also looked good, so I wouldn't be mad if he took over with that. But enough of me rambling here for the offense, because I kind of just took it and ran with it with the offense. No pun intended.
Boo.
Yeah, it was just a fun game from the offensive side of something that we haven't seen before. And the one thing I did notice is that there were very few Dylan run calls, if any. And if Dylan did run, it was because he was scrambling. It was never designed for him to run, which I think is going to be
to that point real
important.
quick. He has one rushing attempt, and it's for -6 yards. So I'm guessing that's the sack.
That's probably the sack.
There was no designed run that's at least noted on the stats.
The only designed run I think was the one that Heinrich did, both in the Wildcat and when he was the second string QB that came in. So. Very, very important to see that they are not relying on Dylan doing run plays unless he's scrambling and improvising. There's probably not going to be any designed run plays for him. And if they do, there's probably going to be some sort of surprise or trick play. But I think that's refreshing and reassuring. And I know I'd said this last year is as much as you want to kind of put the blame on the offense of Satterfield last year, we know that's not the offense Satterfield wanted to run. He wanted to run what we saw Saturday, is you have a passing quarterback, and that's what we thought we were going to get with Jeff Sims when that did happen. So I think we are seeing kind of now the combination of Glenn Thomas and Satterfield working together and running the offense that they do want to run with a quarterback that can make those passes in Dylan. So again, there's obviously 11 more games, and that's all might go sideways too. I hope not, but it's Nebraska, so you can never be too sure.
Possibility?
I remember hearing that.
We'll see. We'll see. This year might
getting
be
flashbacks.
Flashbacks somehow.
Nah.
But yeah, it was just refreshing to see that we have now a competent offense that we can be excited for, not dread every time that they come out on the field, and knowing that they're not going to go 3 and out or something like that. Again, it's as much as you want to see the defense, because the defense is super fun to watch too. And they again had a spectacular game like they did all of last season. They proved again that they have the depth of the line, and they have the linebackers, and the secondary did step up after they gave up that touchdown, and kind of held UTEP to their own after that. But this next week's going to be a challenge for sure for them. But yeah, your guys' thoughts there before we kind of start previewing the Buffs.
I'll let Nate go first.
Well, first of all, I would like to say that I am very disappointed in UTEP for playing 3 quarterbacks and none of them being JP Pickles.
Yeah.
I remember. They didn't follow through. I was disappointed.
Absolute rude.
That aside, no, I mean, Nebraska's offense looked good. I'm going to say something that may be blasphemy, but I didn't watch the spring game. So I had only heard that Dylan looked really good and was good at playing football. So that was kind of my first real introduction to
those 2 touchdown passes that he had. The first one where he was pretty much getting hit as he threw it, and he dropped it right in Nayor's basket. And Nayor made an amazing play too to catch that ball, get off 2 defenders, stay up, and score the touchdown. But I'm more impressed with that second touchdown. And it's Banks too also made that huge adjustment play. But I mean, to put that in the corner to where Banks could only get that, and then Banks to make that turn adjustment and come down with that ball with the defender on him. I mean, both were Dylan being great and our wide receivers being great, which is why I said having those 2 transfer wide receivers is going to be huge this year, because they already proved why we got them.
And then I think there was one on the opening drive. I forget who dropped it, but it was perfect on point pass. It was Nayor. It went right through his hands.
Mm-hmm.
But that was I had heard he was very good. He was very good, and a little more than that. Like, you don't really see that pinpoint of passing from most quarterbacks, and to have one of them playing for our team is pretty cool. And again, granted, it's UTEP. I'm very interested to see how much and what carries over into Colorado, and even just kind of into Big Ten play as well, as we get kind of into that tougher part of the schedule there. But it was a good start. It's a very good start. Like, he looked calm and composed in the pocket, and kind of like you mentioned, Andy, and the quarterbacks before had to run for their lives, and Dylan didn't necessarily need to as much, which is a huge factor. But I think some of it too, I don't know, they just ran for their lives because they like being running quarterbacks. And it was different to see Dylan just kind of sit in the pocket and actually read the defense and try to make a play out of it, instead of looking at the first read, not seeing it open, and then immediately taking off. So that was kind of refreshing to see. And Heinrich, I see, went 5 for 5 at that.
Heinrich,
that's cool to see, because I mean, we've mentioned we need a decent backup quarterback with our track record,
right?
And having Heinrich show that he's making progress, and I mean, we already knew he had just good athletic talent, but seeing that he's making progress as a passer and just as an athlete and can be utilized in different scenarios is refreshing to see. That we have, I don't know, we just have the talent, we have actual depth to the team on offense there. So
yeah,
that's about all I'll leave there for the offense. If you have anything else, Zach.
I don't have much. Not too much more I can add. I will say though, I went back and was just looking at some historical statistics. Heinrich last year was not just great in terms of our offense, just not getting anywhere, and everybody knows that. But for reference, Heinrich last year in the games that he played, and his stats, he wound up with 967 passing yards, and I was like, okay, that's not good, obviously. But here's the crazy thing. In one game where Dylan played 2.5 quarters, he has 238 passing yards.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I know we keep saying like it was just UTEP, but first of all, no disrespect to UTEP at all, because they did expose us on defense the one time where they started playing tempo, and they did a couple times, and you could tell like we were not prepared for it, which is good, because now we know. Now Rule probably knows, like, okay, we need to work on that. And Tony White probably said that too. They were probably fired up, like, come on, we need to get better at that. And I'm sure they will. First game rust is also a thing that happens. And Rule even said that in his press conference this week, I think, or maybe it was last week, where he said, no, it was Monday, sorry, where he said your biggest jump for the year comes between game 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. So if that's true and they stay on the trajectory they're on, then this weekend could be really fun.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, I don't have exactly what the penalties were, but the big key thing I took away from it, which kind of stemmed from last year too, is that we only had 3 penalties. Mm-hmm. And one of them I remember being stupid. Like, I think a lot of it is that first game in front of 86,000 fans, or how many people were there. Mm-hmm. It's loud.
Weren't like 2 of them on like the first or second drive too? Like it.
Yeah,
I remember there was like one drive at the start where we had a couple penalties, and then after that there was just nothing.
Well, and I think one of them, even now that I think about it, was a kickoff, right? I think one was on a kickoff, which still counts, but like, like when you like the worst part about that one, I remember even is it went out of bounds at like the 3-yard line or something like that. It was very close to the end zone. So I was looking at it like, that sucks. I don't hate the kick. It happens.
Right.
Like that penalty, while it still happens, you have to count it. If they do conditioning based on penalties or whatever, you count it. But like the other 2, they were dumb penalties. But again, I say that's the first game kind of rust. Mm-hmm. And then it better be, because not only was this game at 2:30, the next one's at 6:30. So it's a night game, an even better atmosphere, probably for like Memorial Stadium, especially with how they've updated like the whole stadium experience for that. This game, and I think I said it last week when we were talking about it, is what I wanted to see was a decisive win where they go in, and on paper, Nebraska should win by a lot. And they did. And not only did they win by a lot, they maintained by continuing to not only keep winning, but then
they closed out the game.
They closed out the game, and they got a field goal in the fourth quarter. So yeah, they didn't necessarily score a touchdown, but the defense did its job too. Mm-hmm. And it's just it kind of is this. It's kind of becoming abundantly clear that Rule's mantra, his coaching style is, at least for game 1, it worked. And again, I don't think UTEP is necessarily going to beat the pants off of everybody, but I don't think they're necessarily the worst. I think it was a perfect opener that they played us pretty hard that first quarter. And then finally the rest of the talent that Nebraska does have kind of kicked in and says, okay, but not like we've had it in the past where we've had games like this where they get up by 2 touchdowns and then all of a sudden they let off the gas. And I don't think that Nebraska I don't think Nebraska necessarily let off the gas here. Or sorry, I don't think they didn't do that. Mm-hmm. But the mentality was still different, even with the second stringers in. It was like they still went out and played hard, and they weren't just trying to eat clock. They weren't just trying to run it down, and they were trying to score. So, I mean, it seems like the mentality has shifted to, we're going to play good, sound football, and we're going to beat you regardless of who's in. And they're going to have the next, I don't know if this is necessarily next man up or next best man up or whatever at this point, but even then, like Heinrich looked good for the most part. 5 for 5 on passings, nothing too bad. I don't know. I really have no real notes, just because I think I'm saving notes for what happens this weekend against Colorado.
Right.
But I mean, I know we're going to get into it, but we might as well just transition to that, where Colorado being the opponent this week is going to be really interesting because they only beat NDSU by what? Is it like 6 points?
31-26. So
5.
whatever that math is.
I was going to say it was 5 or 6 points, which
I don't want to do math.
And I know Nate being at one point living up in North Dakota was a big NDSU fan. And NDSU is by no means any team that you should disrespect.
Oh no.
But like Colorado should have won their game against NDSU. I feel like we beat UTEP. Then I feel like the question marks this weekend would be okay.
Right.
I think there's still a lot of question marks with what Colorado's doing that hinge on Shedeur Sanders passing to Travis Hunter and telling him, "Oh, just get open."
Yeah.
I think I was talking to one of my other buddies, and I said for their defensive game plan, not necessarily blitz every play, but let your front guys get to Shedeur. I think they can do it. I think Colorado's offensive line is going to have a tough time with us. But on that, just get somebody that can stick with Travis Hunter long enough to make it to uncomfortable to throw into him right away.
Right.
Make Shedeur throw to other guys. But also, if the front line can get to him and get 8 sacks like they did last year or whatever, then by all means, let's just do that. But then also, in my head, I'd say you just keep running it at Travis Hunter since he wants to play defense too, and just keep gassing him out.
Yeah. And I had written that down is, this is going to be probably outside of Ohio State and maybe USC now, seeing what they did. This is probably the most talented not the most talented team, but the most talented skill position players you're going to see all season. I mean, it's no surprise and not going to be a surprise the rest of the season that, you're probably going to play 2 players that are going to be a top 10 for sure pick, maybe even a top 5 pick in next year's draft. And Shedeur and Travis. It's going to be a game where, like you said, Zach, if you can get your matchups corrected and covering Travis and Jimmy Horn, who had a good game last week too. I think he had like 198 receiving yards or something like that. But the secondary is going to have their work cut out for him this week. And Tony White knows that. Nebraska only had a sack last week against UTEP, but they had 9 tackles for losses. So the push to get there from the defensive line is there. And I think Nebraska wins this game literally in the trenches, both on offense and defense, is if Nebraska can't control both lines, like the experience that they have against Colorado on offense and defense. That's how Nebraska's going to win this game is you control the lines, you get to Shedeur, and you protect Dylan. It's Colorado's lines on both sides are not that great. Nebraska ran for 223 yards and NDSU ran for 157 against Colorado. So I think Nebraska can establish the run. It opens up a lot more for Dylan to do in terms of just letting him run and let our receivers who we saw this past weekend can play. Just open it up. But I think Nebraska first, if you can establish the run and just, again, run for 200 against Colorado, you can kind of do anything you want with Dylan at that point in terms of play action, letting him pass. And you just open up so many options. But this is probably going to be the most talented skill position team that Nebraska will play this season, outside of, like I said, Ohio State and maybe USC, depending on how they do. And Shedeur and Travis are going to get their numbers. That's going to be a fact. It's, can you limit the big plays and explosive plays from Colorado? And if Nebraska can do that, then there's, Nebraska. And my prediction, I think it's going to be like a 30-20 game in Nebraska's favor. That's kind of my prediction, where, the defense does give up probably a couple touchdowns, a couple field goals. And Shedeur is probably going to pass for 250, 300. Travis is probably going to go off for close to 100 yards receiving, maybe Jimmy as well. But I think if you limit those explosive plays from them, you give yourself a shot on defense to stuff them and win this game. And the defensive line is definitely going to have to get to Shedeur this game. Like you said, Zach, they got to him last year, but they still won. So we
know why that was.
Well, yeah, because of Jeff Sims. Yeah, and it wasn't because of the lack of defense. It was just we didn't do anything on offense. But the defense is going to be huge this game. Can you keep forcing the turnovers like we did last game? It's our first time that we finished in a positive turnover margin at God knows how many games. Certainly didn't do any of that last year.
I would genuinely be curious to know what that exact stat is.
Yeah, I don't remember I know I saw it come across my timeline at some point when the last time Nebraska finished in a positive turnover margin. It definitely was not last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't actually want to see that. I really don't.
But yeah,
I feel like maybe it was with Mike Riley.
Yeah, it very much could have been, but the defense is going to be the big key to this game. And that's like I had said, Colorado has Shedeur, they have Travis, they have Jimmy. Can you limit them? I don't think they have a running game. What they run for like 50, not it.
I think it was like 53.
59, yeah, they ran for 59 yards. So like they are not going to prioritize the run first. So
we knew that.
Yes, and it's going to be on the Polar Bear. It's going to be on Ty Robinson. It's going to be on Van Poppel. It's going to be on your front defensive guys, Cam Leonard. I forgot who the other guy's name is now. But it's going to be on those front 3 or 4 guys to create that pressure and get Shedeur into those pressure situations to try to force him to make a mistake. And then it's going to be on your secondary. It's going to be on Hartzog, Boodle, Singleton, Tommy Hill. It's going to be on those guys if you're going to double Travis Hunter, you better make sure that your guys that you have the backup cover to the other receivers to make sure that they don't blow coverage or anything like that. So the secondary is probably going to be the biggest key point, I think, in terms of the defense is going to be a key point, but the secondary key point is going to be your secondary this game. And
that was a lot of tongue twistery there.
Yes, it was. It's in there. It's all in there. It's pretty much the defense. And I'm not too worried about the offense right now. Obviously our sample size is 1 game, so it's a very small sample size to go off. But if they did what they did last Saturday, I don't have a problem with the offense moving the ball, especially if Dylan does play all 4 quarters. It's more confidence and that he can't get us into the scoring drives. And that first drive that they had against UTEP, it was 12 or 13 plays, and there was a point where they were 2nd and 20, 2nd and 25. Or it might have been 2nd and 30, and Nebraska got the first down. Yeah, and then Nebraska got the first down. And that's not something that you could have said last year at all.
You could guarantee that
they were going to punt.
That 2nd and 30, it was going to be a punt. Yeah. Like, I think that to me was the turning point. And we have an offense this year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's no way you don't get out of that situation unless you have a competent athletic quarterback. And they went 2nd and 30 to 3rd and 11, and then they converted the first down. And that might have been the drive, or that might have been that next play where Dylan did like the sidearm Mahomes thing, that the clip that I keep seeing on Twitter. So I'm at this point right now, I'm not worried about our offense scoring on Colorado. I don't think Colorado's defense is still good. They're going to give up points. It's just, can our defense in return make those 1 or 2 stops that Nebraska needs to make? And then can our offense capitalize on that after that? I still think Nebraska's going to have to force, again, a couple turnovers. And that safety was super fun. Don't know when that'll happen again, but
that was such a great response though after that
fumble.
It
was absolutely because that fumble was, you're in the red zone, you're going to score again, you're really going to start putting your throat on this game, or putting your foot on their throat to kind of take control of the game, and then you fumble, and then you're like, oh no, the momentum quickly shifted back to them, and then you get the safety, and then immediately the momentum shifts back, and then that next drive is when Dylan threw that nice dime to Nayor on the sideline. So it's the momentum shifts like that Nebraska's going to have, and you're going to have the atmosphere. You're going to have Memorial Stadium behind you. Nighttime NBC, prime time. I mean, you're going to have all of that energy behind you. Can the offense and defense harness that and really make it difficult for Colorado? And I'm not worried about our fans being rowdy because obviously, this game just has huge stakes on this season. It's obviously Colorado. So there's no problem with, you don't even need the bulletin board material for this week. It's Colorado. It's a night game at Memorial Stadium. That alone should be your bulletin board material and have that energy to harness it for this team to go out and kick some butt. Can you limit Travis Hunter and can you limit Shedeur Sanders enough to win you the game? And that's going to be the biggest question mark, I think, for this weekend. So, Nate or Zach, if you have any of your preview thoughts.
I don't know that I can sum it up much better than you.
I was going to say, I think you hit everything I had, honestly.
Yeah,
I think the only thing I would add to it, and I'll let Nate go after this too, because I think this is really all I wanted to add, is Colorado is going to score. Like they're going to. It's like you said, can you minimize it? But also Travis Hunter and those guys are going to make big plays.
Mm-hmm.
Like they need to know that that's going to happen, but you need to just minimize how many they make, but also not let it get you down.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that for me. I don't care. I do, but like, I'm not playing the game. So the players just need to be like, okay, it happens. Go and respond.
Mm-hmm. And that's, what the UTEP game is a perfect example of that. You give up that quick 3-play tempo touchdown. The offense fumbles it, and then you immediately come back out and you get a safety, and then the offense scores again. So it's moments like that where tide can quickly shift from one team to another, and the defense responded, and then the offense responded right after that. So you're going to need those types of plays. And I know Nate had mentioned this earlier, that early touchdown long pass that just kind of went in and out of Nayor's hands. That play ultimately didn't come back to bite you in the butt. It might kind of bite you in the butt if it happens this game. That might be one of those plays you look back on this weekend and you're like, oh, we needed that play. You don't need that type of play versus a team like UTEP that, you go out and win that game. But in a game against Colorado where a near touchdown miss like that, might be the difference maker in this type of game. So those are the types of little things that, you don't think about it now, but then after the game, you go back and like, oh, if you had just caught this pass or this play happened instead, that's the difference maker in the game. But that UTEP kind of those 2 or 3 series where momentum shifted from one side to the other, that's the type of things that are going to need to happen Saturday night against Colorado. And it's the defense they need to force havoc on that backfield and Shedeur. They're going to need him to make some pressure mistakes. And, Dylan, on the stat sheet, it didn't show that he made a mistake, but there were a couple throws Saturday where Dylan just made some errant double coverage, triple coverage throws that were thankfully not picked off, but he did make some questionable decisions on some of those passes that didn't ultimately hurt him, but definitely proved and showed that like, oh, this is just a freshman quarterback making a mistake that, didn't come back to bite him, but you can't do that against better teams going forward the rest of the season. So defense, just Tony White he knows what he needs to do is, can our defense step up and make those plays when they need to? And they did last year, but ultimately they just kind of ran out of steam at the end. So now that we have a competent offense, can you now rely more on your defense, knowing that your offense can go out and score you points again? And that's, like we had said last year, that was the difference maker last year, is Nebraska was a competent quarterback away from going 8-4 last year, pretty much. So Saturday's going to be fun. The bottom line.
I think that's exactly my point. That most of last year, a lot of our conversations hinged on competent quarterback play, and it's one game in, but fellas, we might have competent quarterback play this year.
we might have a quarterback.
So that's all I'm gonna say on it.
Well, sounds like prediction time to me.
Yes, I already said 30-20 Nebraska.
Oh, you were sticking with that? Okay.
Yeah. It's it very much could be more of a high scoring game. Line right now is about 6.5, 7 Nebraska. Over under is 58. So I'm going with the under in it. But I I do think that Nebraska does get some of those big stops. I do think they limit Colorado down the stretch. Early on, I think obviously those first couple drives are going to be just very energized, very you have all the momentum, all the adrenaline in the first couple series. So it might start off hot, might start off high scoring, but I think as the game goes on, I think Nebraska's defense settles in and they really do dig in and they get to Shedeur a couple times. They do force a turnover. I'm confidently say a turnover. Now, how many we do in return, I don't know, but I'm hoping none. Hoping for
hopefully zero.
Goose egg, big fat goose egg. But
now, actually, hold on. I'll switch that. And I'll give you one, and it's because we're going to be so far ahead in the fourth quarter. It's going to be our second.
You're right.
That they made a mistake. They need to get better at it. But we're far enough ahead. It doesn't break the game.
Yeah, I'm going 30-20 Nebraska.
Nate, are you still thinking? Because I've got mine. But otherwise, if you got it, I'll let you go.
I'll let you go. I'm still
all right. So I'm similar in your mind, Andy. But I think I'm going to trust Vegas on this one. And I'm just looking at ESPN, not necessarily other lines, but they have the over-under at 58.5 on ESPN. And I think this one is going to be a little bit higher scoring, but I like where your head's at. So I'm going to copy you and say it's going to be 35 for Nebraska and 27 for Colorado. It's going to be, I don't know if,
enough to cover.
Enough to cover. It's going to be enough. It's going to be a tight game up until the end, where I think it's going to be kind of like what I thought would happen last week, where I predicted it was going to be like 17 points or something.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I did. Where it came out, and I was like, oh, like they'll score a touchdown on us, and then garbage time they'll score again on us, maybe a time or two. They didn't actually do that, obviously, which I'm glad my prediction was wrong there. But I'm thinking that's where Colorado is going to go. Is they're going to try to. I think Nebraska takes a convincing lead in like the third quarter, and then Colorado's trying to make up the difference in the end. Yeah. So 35-27 for me.
All right. So I think that I am just going to go with my gut on this one. Because
2-0.
This game feels like it could have a lot of different outcomes. So I'm going to say that the first quarter and a half is going to be pretty fast paced. I think it's going to be pretty high scoring through, that first quarter and a half. And I think it'll be a pretty tight game through halftime. And then I think that the defense is going to put the clamps down, and final score will be going 42-17.
Oh,
we're taking the over, baby.
Dang.
59 for
a blowout too.
Dang.
I mean,
love it.
Yes, I think Colorado is not going to have a good time. I think their offensive line is going to struggle against our big fellas up front. And I think that while I do have questions about our secondary, I think they are going to be thinking back on how last year went and not want to give up 400 plus yards to Shedeur and Travis Hunter. And I think they're going to come out with a bit of an edge. So. And I mean, night game in Memorial Stadium, so the vibes are going to be right.
Oh, vibes will be immaculate.
God, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be even just fun to watch on TV. Like, obviously, I'm not going to be there like I was last weekend, but dang, that would be a game to also tailgate for. Like, I want to live vicariously through every single tailgater at Memorial Stadium and then go to that game, because that'd be awesome.
Oh yeah, I mean it's going to be a fun game, and obviously I hope we're talking next week and we're not super depressed already. not that the season does not hinge on this game. It will leave a sour taste, but I don't think that if they lose this game, it's the sky is falling. Oh no, downward spiral type trend again.
If they do lose, I think it depends on how they lose.
Yeah. It's going to leave a sour taste, but I don't think it's going to be how the 0-2 start the past couple of years have been, where things going south super quickly, sky is falling type mentality. It's just going to be a sour taste. But yeah, like you said, Zach, depending on how, if they do lose, it's how they lose. And was it, a close loss again? Not that we're not used to those, but you
I'm getting kind of tired of them.
Yeah,
though.
I'm saying here. Obviously, you don't want the reverse of what happened last week, and you lose 7-40 or something like that. So, yeah, it's just we're not even gonna think about it though. How about that?
No. But I will say, I don't necessarily disagree fully, but I do kind of disagree that this season. I don't think hinges on this. I agree with that. However, I think this is the game where Nebraska makes the statement like, oh,
absolutely.
Like if they win convincingly, this could be my bold take of the week, I guess. But I think honestly, and this might not even be that bold of a take, but if they win convincingly like they did against UTEP, maybe not as convincingly, but enough to where you're like, okay, like they showed up, they were ready to play, blah, 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 blah. I think we potentially see a ranked Nebraska the week after.
It's possible. I mean, the rankings that came out today,
the media had us 30th, tied for 30th.
Yeah, I mean they got votes for the bottom of the poll, 27 receiving votes. So
I mean,
ESPN has projected for the Music City Bowl already.
Am I personally convinced that we're top 25 if we beat Colorado? No. However, just based on how the rest of this year and how it started so far, and we're only into week 2 at this point. Like,
I mean, if they blow out Colorado, then absolutely, I think they get ranked.
I don't personally think we're going to blow out Colorado,
no,
but if they do,
that's where you're wrong, Bucko.
I was going to say, I'm 100% fine. I am absolutely fine with being wrong there. Which, speaking of, since we're on predictions, Andy won prediction last week, by the way. Just in terms of,
I know what I'm talking about. In case you were wondering,
I had their score right
to win the championship.
You did, but I take just the collective amount of how far off we are.
I was more righter, though.
You was more right.
More righter?
But you were wrong.
That ain't
so. But, yeah. I mean, I in my head, this is the game that Nebraska makes. If they're going to make a statement this year, especially early, they make it against Colorado and they say, yep, okay. Maybe not the we're back statement. We're not saying that yet. Right. But like Nebraska may have something here. And I think this is also where we start to see Rule and his year 2 jump, where you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a real thing. Like, this is what a head coach does. Got it. Cool.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's what he was saying all of last year. Is like he said last year felt like year 2 to him when it should be year 1. So in theory, then like this would be technically year 3 when it's year 2 type thing. So, yeah, it's
Natty your bust.
I mean, we're plus 20,000 to win the championship. So if you wanna get in on those odds,
yeah, that's better than plus 30,000.
You're right.
It's crazy to me that I'm sure there's a bet for every team out there. I understand.
Oh, there is.
Like, come on,
there is.
Come on. The fact that we're not even further down than that, I guess, is surprising.
Nebraska Vanderbilt national championship. Who says no?
Who says no? That's why we have the playoff.
Vanderbilt. Oh my.
Kings of the SEC, some say. According to the
streets. The streets are saying.
Well, then what happened to Georgia?
Vandy
they haven't run into Vandy yet.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right. All right.
Wait a minute. Vanderbilt dynasty. Who says no?
Not me. Oh,
I was gonna say
I prefer Nebraska dynasty, but
lots of dissent there. I can tell.
Not what I'm trying to raise up in the ranks in college football. 25.
Oh, you don't need that.
All right. Well, any second final thoughts? Like we said,
thoughts every day, Andy.
Well, we all do. Just don't act on them. Unless they're good.
Not that kind of second thought. Jeez. My second thought's usually like, oh, I probably shouldn't have had that last beer. Or like, oh, I don't know if lunch was a good idea. Not that. Jeez.
No, if you're always asking if if you should have that last drink, the answer is always yes.
My only second thought is, oh shit, I don't even know where I was going with that. It's gone. Never mind. I gotta stay around for the Nebraska dynasty to come back. Come on, what are you talking about?
You're right.
What do you mean? It's already here, Zach.
I gotta be confirmed.
Wouldn't
I
you
gotta
like to
see it
know-
The
happen.
streets are saying.
The
Would
streets.
you like to know that you're living in the good old days before they're gone?
Correct. Yeah. By the way, we need to just have a separate episode of Sports Ball for all the street lore. We'll especially like
That'll be our
if
Patreon
people-
viewers.
If people don't, yeah, once we get a Patreon set up,
We'll use all of our runs of money for big production here.
Yes.
I love
It'll
how
be a
high.
proper
I
documentary.
love how like for the moon you guys are thinking. I love it.
What I just realized, we did not have to fire anybody to the sun this week.
Oh,
Did we
good.
want to?
If we had to, we'd have to really nitpick to fire somebody.
Ben Hart holding penalty?
The one of three, yeah, I guess.
Classic Bryce Ben Hart, though. You said
Yeah.
when you saw that happen, I know. I said classic Bryce Ben Hart.
But you know what? I will give him this. The rest of his game made up for it. So
Yeah.
he played a really good game outside of that. But you're right. Classic Bryce Benhart.
We'd have to really nitpick to try to find
I
somebody
will-
to fire to the sun this week.
I'm also still going to advocate for continuing to fire Satterfield into the sun until further notice. But
It seems a little early for that, especially with how
no,
like,
no, not for this
competent-
year. This is still retroactive to
Oh,
last
right. Retroactive from last year.
Oh, well, if we're doing that, then yeah.
Obviously.
Okay, hold on. If we're doing that, then Jeff
Sims, yeah.
he did get fired into the sun. He went to Arizona State.
He
He legitimately
went
kind of
to-
went to the sun. So I'm going to call that the spade and we win. So boom. Jeff Sims. See ya, homie.
Yeah. With that, like I had mentioned before, 6:30 on NBC if you're not going to the game,
Or
this
4:30 for
Saturday.
those on the West Coast.
or 4:30, or if
That
you
fake time.
have tickets that you're lucky enough, good for you. I'm not spending the 200 plus to go to it. So unless you want to gift me some tickets, I will gladly take them off your hands for you. With that, but yes, should be a very fun game this weekend, and obviously, Scurs by 90, as we always agree. And if they do win by 90, then holy hell, a lot of things went right.
If Scurs win by 90, we're back.
Yeah,
I-
that's not a
Sorry.
hot take.
Sorry. If Scurs win by 90 and Little Red gets sacrificed in the middle of the field, we're back.
Yes, you're right. We still have to sacrifice him at some
Little
point.
Red still exists. Therefore,
be the,
Nebraska cannot be back.
That'll be the halftime entertainment.
I hope so.
That's it. That's literally just
Yeah.
it. Like the band just
Well-
like the band just plays the Jaws theme the whole time.
It'll be tied at 0 at halftime. Then we'll do that at halftime. Win 90-0.
Yes,
That's how it goes.
it is.
I am fine with that.
Yes,
Nice.
I am too. But from all of us at the Sportsball Podcast, I'm Andy, that's Nate, and that is Zach. We will see you next week, and we are your sorts for sports.